This is Democracy and the Rule of Law on Galaxy Television. I'm Solomon Offem. Now, I have barristers Evans Ufeli and Destiny Takan in the building today. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for finding our time.
Thank you, and good to be here again, viewers.
Especially Pastor Destiny. He doesn't joke with his church. So, dragging you here on Sundays is usually, well, but it is good to see you.
Yeah,
so, let's quickly take a look at the first topic for discussion, where amid heightened anxiety over the decision of the President, Muhammad Buhari, on the Electoral Act Amendment Bill, the presidency on Saturday evening said that the President would make his decision known soon. Now, the 30-day period in which the President is expected to assent or withhold his bill is all but expiring. And the bill was transmitted to the President on November 19, 2021, after both chambers passed it. And the most controversial issue there is the mandatory direct primaries for political parties to elect their candidate for election. Prior to the amendment, political parties had the liberty to decide on the mode of primary for candidates for elections to emerge. The National Assembly had insisted on the mandatory direct primary while expressing optimism the President will assent to the bill. They argued that the clause would guarantee free, fair and credible elections, as well as enable card-carrying members of political parties to have a say on the emergence of their party's candidates. Now, several civil society organizations, analysts and individuals have also expressed support for the direct primary, saying it will take power back to the people and strip governors and influential party members of the party to solely decide the fate of aspirants through the delegate, which is the indirect primary system. The Nigerian Civil Society Situation Room, a coalition of over 70 CSOs, on Friday in a statement urged the President to assent to the bill, and if he withheld assent, the National Assembly should veto the bill. Now, let's talk. The past 1 week, there have been lots of rumors. Of course, when this kind of things happen, the President not assenting the bill, especially with the controversy that have surrendered the bill, especially with the inclusion of electronic voting, where INEC leaders and National NCC, National Communication Commission's leaders were invited to the House to talk for or against the electronic voting transmission, transmission of results, rather, and all those controversy, and the National Assembly finally heed to the cause of Nigerians. That enough is enough with our wishy-washy democracy, starting from the way these leaders have been elected into office, and the thing got to the President's table, and the President has been the clamor for change, or the face of change for the APC. Of course, the President, that one of his major electioneering campaign is corruption. And we know how corruption is endemic, especially in our electoral system. One would have expected that the President to sign the bill into law without hesitation. And all of a sudden, 30 days is all but expired, and the President have not signed this bill into law. What do you think is going on here? What do you think is playing out?
Well, the President have not come out to give the reason. The bill has not been signed until now. I think they still have some 7 hours or thereabouts, between now and midnight. The issue is that I am forced to conceive or believe that the issue of electronic voting, the issue of determining how the political parties
the direct primaries
conduct their primaries may have been a strategy to stall this process. May have been a strategy, because it's very controversial. If you look at political parties by law, political parties are associations.
Yeah.
They are associations, okay? It is not in the place of the government or the National Assembly to dictate how they decide to run their affairs.
But I know it is sorry to cut you there. they are associations, yes, but they are not an association in isolation. I mean, they are a huge chunk of our electoral system, as it were.
You see, it is good for you to have direct primaries. I mean, when you look at democratic engagement, the right thing is to allow wider participation. Okay, wider participation, so that all card-carrying members, because there are two kinds of membership. You have card-carrying members and you have
so
those
in the real sense, it's
ideally, in an ideal environment, that is what democracy should represent. Direct. Let representation come from, let power come from the people. Let them donate their allegiance
instead of 2-3 people having a meeting in a different room and
instead of you having delegates for where money becomes the determinant factor of who will emerge as the flag bearer of the party. Okay, but in this circumstance, bringing it at this stage, when we know that it has the tendency, because I'm just looking at it that they are looking for an excuse. What I'm seeing here is that one of these issues may just be the excuse for which perhaps we will hear very soon the position of the president. Because the last time, before the 2019 election, even though some of the reasons given then were tenable, because what really happened was that as at the time it was presented to the president, the National Assembly didn't carry out that function proper. If you assign it then, okay, the political parties require 90 days within which to send in their candidates. You understand? And then if you assign it then, they would have run short of that. And then the section 32, 36, 34, the controversy around it was not properly guided. So that was even understandable. But this one, I mean, the National Assembly has taken its time to look at the possible innovation. INEC made huge inputs as stakeholders, as a primary stakeholder, made huge input in this. This, for me, is an electoral act that should give us a formidable democracy. And the president have no reason whatsoever not to sign it. Because even if it's still subject to amendment, okay, further amendments, okay, just
whether
like
he signs it or not.
Yes, what I say is, now the issue about vetoing and then the National Assembly overriding is part of our laws, but it has never happened in Nigeria. When
Obasanjo, the first time.
Yes, during Obasanjo's period, okay, when he vetoed a bill and the National Assembly came up to override it. Now, the federal government went to court to stall it. Okay, so we'll look at it. I think if this assembly is serious, and if they believe in the job and input they have made into that bill, if the president veto it, they should be able to override the president.
Well, that remains to be seen, talking about the seriousness. Barrister Destiny, so what do you think? What do you think is going on? Politics?
It is shameful politics that is going on. Looking at the fact that the Electoral Act has been amended, and don't forget, this amendment came as a result of input from Nigerians, civil society organizations, political platforms.
And a major outcry, as a matter of fact.
From INEC, you know, and all of that.
CSOs.
Yes, you know, to say this is what we want, this is what we deserve, this is what is good enough for Nigeria, you know, and you want to ask, the controversy actually revolves around direct primaries, actually, if you looked at the whole thing. And what is painful and a bit disturbing is the fact that right now there's a lot of lobbying going on from what we hear, you know, by the governors, most of whom are strongly opposed to the direct primaries, you know. And even, sadly, even National Assembly members themselves, some are beginning to take camps now as a result of the lobbying. This is a bill that was, you know, debated by the two houses and passed, which means, of course, it is taken though, of course. Passage doesn't mean that it was 100%, but majority passed it, so it is passed. Yeah. Now, it is giving vent for those who for whatever reason were commissioned or urged or lobbied against it now to try to create more camps and divisions, you know, in the National Assembly. Some who are now saying, reliably gathered, that, you know, unless if there's a provision, another provision, for they who are there, the sitting members of the National Assembly to have the right of first refusal. You know, and that's for the National Assembly members. And for the governors, you want to ask, why would you not want direct primaries? Why would the president not want direct primaries? Why would anybody at any time of electoral process, you know, any participant, any stakeholder, not want direct primaries? It only stems from selfishness, from lack of patriotism, from lack of a genuine interest to serve and to improve the lot of Nigerians and to move this country forward. You know, one of the bane of our democracy, especially, is the fact that we have people today in positions, but elective positions, who are product of godfatherism, who are product of mediocrity, products of have measures. You know, you have a situation from one state to the other where a certain colossus, political colossus in that state determines who get a ticket. I have experienced that in the 2019 elections, I must say, during the primaries. You have somebody in the National Assembly from my part of the country who, if you Google, you will never find his name to have come up with a resolution, with a motion, or sponsorship of any bill, who had to go back because somebody just decided that he had to go back against the wishes of the party members who actually wanted that fellow out. You know, so the only way we can actually ensure that we don't have, because at the end of the day, society remains at the receiving end of this kind of situation, where you have misfits, you have just bench warmers in the National Assembly, allowance earners, and nothing else. Those who are not contributory, who are not truly representative of their people, because they are product, as I said, of either godfatherism or a system that does not guarantee or ensure that those who emerge as candidates are those whom the real members of the party, whether you call them card carrying or whatever, you know, actually decided should go. And it is from the, you know, just for the National Assembly. It is from there that you have the chairman involved. It is there that the governors and deputies involved, the president involved. So the only way to ensure, if indeed those people, you know, at this point now the president really is nationalistic, patriotic, and wants the best for Nigeria, is for him to assent to that bill. Because direct primaries is a move or a step towards redressing the malady, the problems we have with our democracy, of having to ensure that only credible, competent, and acceptable people, you know, emerge as candidates. Because it's from the candidates of one party standing up against the candidate of another party that somebody wins election. So if we have dealt with the issue of electoral, electronic transmission of votes, the other thing to deal with, and we should, and this is the time to do it, is the direct primaries. If we indeed love ourselves, our posterity, and our children, it doesn't make any sense. If you are in government today, in an elected position, and you think you have the perquisites of office, of governance, for how long would you have them? You'll be there for probably 2 terms, and you come down. Indeed, while serving, the insecurity that pervades the country today is as a result of mediocrity and having misfit from who takes up executive positions, being eminently qualified by affidavit, to appoint other people who are eminently qualified by God knows what, to head security agencies. Look, you're not safe. If you have 2, 3 mobile policemen in your envoy, if you even have 10 soldiers, it has been proven that you're not safe. If somebody decides to come up to you with your 10 soldiers in your convoy, you would not, well, God only would help.
I mean, they've actually attacked military formations.
So let's utilize this opportunity to ensure that we have people who bring about good governance that ensures legitimacy of those who emerge, and also ultimately competence, and with competence, so that we have good and effective governance, that people will have a sense of responsibility and belonging, and that will ensure the welfare and well-being of Nigerians, security of life and of expectation.
Now, let's take a look at this politically. You know, they say politics is a game of interest. It is a game of number. Now, because I'm trying to get into the president's head now to wonder what he's thinking politically. If it was his first term, some will understand, okay, probably signing this into law might, reduce his chances of coming back for a second term. But this is a second term for him, and there's no third term, which means he's not coming back. What do you think is going into his head politically? Because as far as we know, it's majorly the governors that are opposed to it, and we all understand why they are opposing to it. The National Assemblies, to a large extent, okayed these direct primaries, and we know that the National Assembly is made up basically of APC, and we've known the relationship that has come on between the National Assembly and the president this term, where
the Ninth Assembly.
Yeah, for good or for bad, they've been together. Yes. They practically do what the president wants. So, would you say the national president went away from the wishes of the president in this case? Because I'm trying to play a whole lot of scenario here.
The National Assembly need not follow the bidding of the president.
I mean, that's what has gone on the whole of this.
I know that unfortunately the current assembly is very subservient. They have said it in the past that they were not constituted to fight the president, even though nobody asked them that. They came out and said that that anything he brings, they will pass it. They said it, anything. So we are working with a subservient National Assembly, but surprisingly, okay.
Yeah, I think that's the right word.
Yes, surprisingly, they're able to come up with this kind of innovation. Maybe because of the public outcry, and maybe because they also want to gain the favor of the people, given that the president in question will not be coming back. And it's unlikely that the president will be going to the National Assembly. But most of them in the National Assembly will want to go back. It has always been the case. So if the only way I would have been able to analyze this, if possibly we still have the president still have maybe 15 days, I would have said the president is still consulting. Okay? But as of today,
a few hours left.
Yeah, I can't hold that thought that the president is still consulting, or that he wants to take his time. This thing is almost vetoed as I see it, almost given time and given legislative time that is left. Okay? But you see, there's something I want to add to this that we have not paid attention to, and that is the backdrop of what applies during the indirect primaries and what may apply if this pass. Because the National Assembly that is saying this is what we want, many of them also have calculated that since we're able to buy delegates, we can say buy the entire carrying members. Because primaries will now be tougher when you have direct primaries. And then you are going to have more dispute within the party, and then you are going to have more pre-election matters in court.
In other words, there will be lots of drama.
Yes, there will be more pre-election matters in court, okay? And there will be more dispute, because now the primaries will now become a do-or-die affair. They want to choke, but it's still the right thing to do. It's still the right thing to do. As to what the president is thinking, until the president come up with a press release, I may not be able to ascertain, because time is fast spent.
I mean, we can only speculate.
But I think that we should also look at the electors. Can the electors stay above board when card-carrying members now we have to? Because the primaries determines the general election. I mean, it's the primaries that will do this election. And then the final outplay is intra-party. But within the party, the primary is true. So let's admonish Nigerians who are card-carrying members of political parties to resist the temptation of being bought when the time comes, if this pass.
So since we're talking about speculation, let's speculate away. What do you think is at play here politically, in the president's head? Because just like I've said before, for all we know, it's only the governors, that are majorly at odds with these direct primaries, and of course one or two of the legislators that were originally not in support. What's the president's stake here?
Well, his take would be difficult to tell, but of course we can only conjecture what might be playing on his mind. Perhaps with, let's not forget that the president emerged from a certain political party, which was in opposition, and which by its body language in the last first term and now the second term, his posturing has been to retain power at all costs. They've done that, they've shown that in so many ways. I speak so as a Nigerian, we've seen that. And with that in view, you want to say that even though the president doesn't have the opportunity for a third term, definitely that he would naturally also want to do everything to ensure that his party stays in power. And so, to that extent,
because that's, that's the thing. His party members okayed this bill in the first place. I mean, they have the majority in the National Assembly.
Exactly. So as it were, so even if by divine intervention or by heeding to public outcry, that the National Assembly has done this and to say thank you, that's why I said that, of course, it wasn't 100%, but of course it is the A's have it, and the A's had it, and that this delay is giving vent to opportunity for those who would have been the ready tools in the hands of those who would not have wanted to go this direction that the bill went, to have a second bite of the cherry, to be able to go back and begin to renegotiate, So, but like as I said, I think it has to do much more with doing whatever it takes, because the interest, like we have said and are still saying now, for especially the crop of those in government today, majority of them, I want to say probably 95%, are not people who emerge from a process that you will say is truly representative of the will of the people. And so if you have those in the minority, are those who emerge through the same process, the same process that lacks integrity, those also from the majority party, also from the same process. So for the party in government, what they're doing or what's going through the president's mind, I fathom, I'm trying to pick his brains, is basically that he's doing everything to see how to circumvent, this amendment and ensure that this doesn't come in. But of course, like we also said, I mentioned lack of nationalism, lack of patriotism, for anybody to do that.
Now, another speculation out there is the fact that, direct primaries will be quite expensive.
500 billion or so.
Compared to the indirect primaries. And some are saying that's the reason why the president is considering that. Is that possible? Is that a good reason enough?
I do not think it's good enough reason. 500 billion naira is not good enough money for Nigerians to have good governance. If we have to spend, if all that it takes for Nigerians to have good governance is 500 billion naira, I would say let's double it so that Nigerians can have good governance. Because you and I know that what is looted by bad governance, as a result of bad governance and corruption, in a matter of a week supersedes that amount and if you in multiples, all right, or probably hundreds. So if 500 billion is all it will take, and I'm saying it shouldn't be a consideration. If that's what the president is thinking, then of course he should listen to us. We are saying that let's spend 500 billion that INEC says that's what we'll spend more to have direct primaries. Because direct primaries, by its intent, would give us better candidates or products for elections. Now, somebody's talking about the possibility of buying up or paying up these party members. Then don't forget, it will be a paradigm shift from godfathers deciding who goes to card-carrying members deciding their conscience whether to sell
even if
or not.
Even if they have to smite in
would
the
have
eye.
made some progress. It would have been a move to the right, a positive move to the right.
I agree.
And we would improve from there too. So let's go there first, all right? Where we have to contend with having to talk to card-carrying members. Please, you Nigerians, make sure that the
and
best
then they'll go home with Ghana
up.
must go and spend
We'll gradually find a way to deal with that too.
So now, I'm looking about a scenario between when the National Assembly, when the president got this bill for signage, when the president got it from the National Assembly, and to this deadline period. Now, if there was anything the president saw in the bill, I'm trying to get a sense of how this works mainly, which is the speculation. The president must have seen something wrong with this and something wrong with that, and most notably the cost of the direct primaries and all that. Wouldn't have even have been right for the president to take the bill, point out some of these mistakes early enough and send it out to the National Assembly to make one or two adjustments, to one or two things that he sees wrong, from his 100% conscience, and they take it to him for him to now finally sign? Or is it that the president is too busy with a lot of things to actually take a look in-depthly?
There's a sense in which that would have been possible. But that can only be possible with a president that have a passion for a change in the democratic.
Which means it was possible for that to have happened.
Yes, it's possible, but it's only possible when you have a president that have a passion for the growth of democracy. This president is not very big on what really happens to Nigeria. He's not really bothered as much as we are clamoring and saying, why should this be this, why should this be that, should it be that? I mean, we have seen a lot in the past, okay? The president have made comments in the past that point to the direction that he's a Democrat by packaging. Yes, it was packaged by some political godfather and handed down to Nigerians. For the past 8 years, we have declined, for the past 7 years now, 7 years now, we have declined in everything miserably in this country. In everything.
Anything you can think
of. Over the weekend, someone was commending former President Goodluck Jonathan for, apologizing for,
and the bar was already pretty low before he even came in.
It tells you this president is not very big on what democracy should be. So he's there, but largely it's not there. So normally, in this case, since there's no time again, after the particular day, he will release a press conference to state why he's vetoing it. Okay? So from there, the National Assembly will take it up. Now, this National Assembly, whether they will have the capacity, they have the capacity by law, but whether they have the political will to override the president and do what the larger society requires is a different thing entirely. So I think we should no longer be talking about the president because he has lost his time within the scope.
Maybe our hours. So.
Okay, maybe our hours, but maybe our focus should be on the National Assembly. That they are the ones that now have time in their hands between now and the date of the election to see how we can have this amendment, because this amendment will take us, further in our democratic progress, and that will give us the platform upon which we can contrive good governance, because that is what is lacking in this country. Leadership has been the problem of this country, and you cannot get good leadership when you don't have good political system. So that political system is electoral process. So that is what we are trying to work on.
So now let's go to the National Assembly now. What next? We talk about the political will, for them to now override the president. So how does that process go? What do you think is needed, for the National Assembly? Just like we've said before, the National Assembly has already been known to be rubber stamp. Even though in this case they went away from their normal National Assembly, we've always known them to be. So are we seeing a National Assembly now that is finally coming into its own and decide to do what is necessary, especially if the people cry out? Because it's obvious that the people need to cry out before the National Assembly do anything. But have we cried enough for them to start seeing reason for them to do the right thing instead of doing what the president wants?
Nigerians have cried more than enough, but as to whether they've been heard by the National Assembly, members is a different thing altogether.
But these shows that they are beginning to listen.
Yeah, I'm coming. I'm only laying a premise. All right. No, so you want to look at perhaps, I've also listened to some members of National Assembly argue on the floor of both houses, and they had my mind, you know, because the people in it, that's why even when I talked about the crop of people in elected offices, I said I gave 95%. I left that 5% to those types that I've heard speak like nationalists, that have spoken patriotically, that have spoken for the people. You know, they are such, you know. So Nigerians have always spoken. There's always been a public outcry. Now, so if this is as a result of adherence or they are heeding that outcry, it should not be because Nigerians have not been clamoring, they have. And so I said Nigerians have done more than enough. But if they're doing that now, the important thing I've said is either because of the outcry of Nigerians or by divine intervention, that has come. And we all would only hope, because of the body language and posturing of the president all through, like I've said, it is very deducible naturally that the president would want to make sure his party stays in government, and so anything howsoever that would appear not to assure that, he would be up against his will. So what the National Assembly needs is the political will. Is the will, the nationalistic will, the patriotic will, you know, to do the right thing, which would mean if the president, at the close of today, which is 19th of December, which is the deadline, if the president doesn't assent to the bill, then they should rally amongst themselves and have the necessary percentage votes and override the president.
Okay,
so that becomes law.
Yeah, Barrister Evans, what next? You know, what next? The National Assembly override the president, or more political drama to come?
Yeah, you know, the National Assembly now, if it is finally vetoed, need to go through another two-third majority vote to get move override. But the issue is this: there are members of the National Assembly who voted to pass this bill so that the president can sign, who may not want to vote to override the president. So we still need lobbying at the National Assembly level on overriding the president's veto. Okay?
Which means more drama to come.
More drama, a bigger drama, because at this point, you will begin to see vested interests here and all that. And then people who want to buy favor and the rest of it. And you see politicking within the House, okay? That must come to play before they're able to get this thing pulled through.
So what happens if it doesn't not signed into law, or the National Assembly could not override the president? It means we'll go back to status quo.
2010 Electoral Act.
Wow.
Yes, that is so defective and porous.
Wow.
That has created more problems that have taken us to court than progress.
Well, of course, democracy and the rule of law will be here to follow, watch the drama unfold, and as usual, we'll be here to talk.